I stumbled upon a haunted castle where lovers were cursed for their sinful pleasures. I never should have opened that door. An ominous chill embraced me the moment I stepped inside. The air was thick with dread, as if the ghosts of broken-hearted lovers lingered, desperate for their stories to be told. I was just wandering mindlessly through the old town, captivated by tales of the castle's dark history. Now, the weight of it pressed down on me like lead. The hallways yawned into shadowy depths. I could hardly see, but the chill nipped at my skin, making me shiver. I heard a faint whisper echo through the gloom like a warning, or perhaps a lament. My heart thundered in my chest, each beat louder than the last, matching the violent thrum of curiosity that pulled me further in. Windows lined the stone walls, but they let in more darkness than light. Dust motes danced sluggishly in the air, caught in the ghostly glow of an unseen moon. The scent of decay permeated the space, rich and sickly, as if the castle was breathing its last breaths. It felt alive and not in a good way. I stepped cautiously, each creak of the wooden floor sending jolts of fear racing through me. An old candelabra flickered, its flame flickering wildly, casting erratic shadows that seemed to watch me. I paused, straining to catch every sound there. It was again a soft, melodic cry. It felt like a call from another time, a longing buried deep beneath the rubble of heartache. I moved forward, entranced, a grotesque curiosity rooting me to the spot. What sins had these lovers committed to earn such a fate? The twisted tales I'd heard rushed back, painting vivid stories of betrayal and despair. I couldn't shake the feeling that the walls themselves could spill the secrets they guarded, if only I dared to listen. Suddenly, a loud bang resonated behind me. My breath hitched. I turned, but nothing was there, only shadows creeping closer, hungry for my light. Panic surged. The whispers grew louder, almost mocking in their urgency. I backed away, my pulse racing, every instinct screaming for me to flee, but as I turned to exit, something caught my eye, a figure looming near the entrance. I froze. The darkness swirled around it, twisting like a living thing. My heart stopped. Was it real? My hands trembled as I attempted to blink, to dispel the specter of my dread, and then, just like that, the figure moved. A gasp escaped my throat. I spun back toward the door, but it slammed shut with a deafening thud, echoing through the emptiness. Silence fell heavy. I was trapped, and the whispers turned to haunting laughter. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The laughter spiraled into a cacophony, a twisted chorus that echoed through the stone corridors, feeding on my growing terror. I turned away from the door, heart racing, and faces drifted into view among the shadows. They were pale, elongated, and staring back with hollow eyes that seemed to plead for release from their torment. Once beautiful, they were now twisted by despair and longing, their mouths stretching into grim, silent screams. The whispers morphed into a singular voice, low and sorrowful. It seemed to wrap around me, coiling tighter with every heartbeat. Stay with us, it beckoned, a siren call that clawed at the edges of my reason. I shook my head, clenching my fists as I fought the urge to stay, to listen. I turned, scanning the room for anything that could guide me through the nightmare. A flicker of movement caught my attention, and I glimpsed another figure at the far end of the hall. It was fleeting, just a shimmer in the dim light, but it was enough to anchor my resolve. I took a tentative step toward it, hoping it was a way out. With every step I took, the oppressive air made it harder to breathe, and the figures in the shadows began to emerge, twisted and grotesque, all with mournful presses against the walls, reaching for me as if I were their last hope. Don't leave us, they murmured in unison, their ethereal voices droning like a funeral dirge. I surged forward, desperate to escape their grasp, but the hallway seemed to stretch endlessly before me, a dark labyrinth that wound back on itself while swallowing the light whole. I stumbled, my foot catching a raised floorboard, and I braced myself against the rough stone wall that it was cold, far colder than the air around me, and when I pressed my ear to the surface to steady my breath, I thought I could hear a heartbeat throbbing beneath. A dark pulse matched the frantic beating of my own heart, a malevolent rhythm that thrummed through the structure of the castle. The walls seemed to vibrate, urging me to succumb to the despair that lingered in the air, and for a moment, I felt my resistance weaken. No, I gasped, shaking my head violently. The air around me crackled as a surge of energy pulsed, an unsettling motion that felt like a warning, or perhaps a promise of things best left buried. I caught a glimpse of a mirror on the wall, cracked and grimy, but reflecting the anguished faces of the lovers who remained trapped and tormented. I stumbled back, and just as I did, the mirror crackled with a surge of light, the reflections morphed, swirling like smoke, weaving into images of their final moments, lovers entwined in despair, caught in frail whispers of betrayal hanging around their necks like chains. Their eyes, dim and lifeless yet filled with a haunting thirst for reprisal, seemed to plead for my help, but help for what? How could I redeem the damned? A shattering crash echoed behind me, and I whirled around to discover one of the spirits breaking through the wall, phasing from the weary plaster as if it were nothing but fog. It lunged at me, a wretched, howling specter of chaos, grasping for my soul with fingers that crackled like brittle bark. I darted sideways, adrenaline pumping through my veins as I sprinted away from its grasp, fingers of cold tightened around my wrist, the ghostly hand pulling me back, almost tender, but the dread was heavier than any lingering affection. "Stay," the apparition hissed, and I felt a chill clawing at the edge of my consciousness, threatening to overtake me with despair. For a heartbeat, the air thrummed with their collective yearning, a temptation wrapped in sorrow. My mind screamed in rebellion. I ducked and twisted away, a surge of primal fear allowing me to break free from its grasp, and as I tore down the corridor, the entire castle seemed to shudder as if protesting my escape. The shadows leaped to life, slithering along the walls, racing after me with an insatiable fury that I reached the end, a door obscured by dark drapes. Instinct drove me to yank it open, just as a chorus of souls surged forward, their wails crescendoing to a terrifying climax. Cold seams wrote their way up my spine as I stumbled through the opening, and the laughter curdled into a deep, echoing groan. I slammed the door behind me, panting heavily, but my breath caught in my throat as I turned. The room I entered was even darker, but dim light seeped through cracks in the floor, revealing chests and relics buried beneath the weight of dust and ruin. Inscribed on the walls, a web of messages traced the contours of desperation, the words bled misery, declaring something akin to vengeance. My heart raced as I saw a figure cloaked in shadow, standing in the corner, watching me. A smirk stretched across its face, one that spoke of ancient traps and promises made in blood. Without a sound, it lifted a skeletal finger and pointed towards the center of the room, where an altar lay, shrouded in darkness, and suddenly, all the whispered confession ceased. The silence was pregnant with dread, pressing all around me. "You've come for them," the figure rasped, voice slithering like tendrils of smoke. "You must choose. They are waiting." With those words, the whispers returned, interspersed with longing cries, imploring me to listen, to partake in their tragic tale. I was no longer just an observer, I had become entwined in the tale, a participant in their misfortunes. Terrified, I stepped toward the altar, feeling a dark energy ripple through the space. As I reached out, a horrific vision unfurled, each lover's fate entwined with mine, binding us all in a tapestry of eternal suffering. The shadows surged, enveloping me as I stood on the cusp of a revelation too horrifying to fathom, and then the ground shook beneath me, a crack splitting through the floor, whispering secrets from the abyss. "Make your choice," it beckoned, ominously, and the shadows tightened like a noose around my neck. I gasped for breath, my mind racing. Was it too late to turn back? But as I looked around, the echoes of the past enveloped my senses, each soul's desire clawing at reality. I was ensnared, trapped in a dance of darkness where the line between salvation and damnation blurred. The choice hung in the air, tangible and terrible. And then the earth trembled once again, and the walls shivered, as if the castle itself held its breath, waiting for the inevitable conclusion. The door behind me burst open, but it wasn't the way I had come. On the other side stood a new horror, a darkness far more profound than the castle itself, that I felt the ground beneath me begin to crumble away into nothingness, and my heart raced with the impossible realization that my next step could plunge me into an endless void or the depths of the castle's curse. But I had no choice. The laughter roared back to life, joined by screams of urgency and despair. The lost lovers, the shadows, the fates. And in that terrifying moment, a voice whispered directly into my ear like a gnawing caress, "Choose, or be lost forever." The chilling whispers rattled around me, the voices merging into an unholy symphony that echoed through the ancient stone. My breath came shallow, anxiety coursed through my veins like a venomous serpent. The weight of spectral despair pressed down, threatening to crush me under its sorrowful burden. I was the intruder, the one who had ventured into the depths of their misery, and now I was ensnared in a web of their cursed desires. Before me spread the altar, a grotesque offering gleaming with tarnished metal adorned with fading gems that held the color of spilled blood. I stumbled closer, drawn by a desperate need to know what lay beneath the surface of dread. Flickering shadows danced across the walls, weaving through the inscriptions, every word dripping with anguish. Within the chaos, I could see faces emerging, lovers twisted by bitterness, beckoning me to unearth their pain. The cloaked figure seemed to dissolve further into the darkness, a mere silhouette against the faint light. Its voice echoed again, a haunting lull that twisted around my heart. They were once pure souls. Their love knew no bounds, until greed and betrayal severed the ties that wove them together. Now they're bound to this place, and through you a choice can be made. The darkness coiled around my legs, drawing me further toward the altar. My instincts screamed to retreat, but each step I took felt like an anchor, anchoring me to a dreadful fate. The air shimmered, thick with the sorrow of countless spirits, and then it happened. A voice, distinct and familiar, surged from the depths of my memory. "Help us, save us!" It breached forward with a pulse of desperation that I recoiled, realization clawing at my mind like a ravenous beast. No, not them, not the faces I recognized, not the friends I had lost. They were here, interwoven with the tapestry of anguish, a reflection of love twisted into torment. The memories flooded back, accompanied by chilling laughter that filled the room, reverberating within the expanse of the castle like a cry for vengeance, their pleas twisted into a cacophony of hysteria, overwhelming and disorienting. "You can save us, but at what cost?" The question hung in the air, lingering like an ominous storm cloud, while the shadows surged, pressing in closer, their forms shifting like smoke trying to take shape. That I reached for the altar. The moment my fingers brushed the cold stone, an electric surge shot through me, igniting the very essence of my being. Visions erupted in a torrent, a panorama of betrayal, passion turned to anguish, love metamorphosed into a battle of wills. I gasped, a cry half formed in my throat, choking on the gravity of what awaited me if I dared uncover their truth. Then I understood beneath those twisted pleas lay fractured memories, desires that reached beyond the veil of time. They craved release, and I was their unwitting catalyst, set to choose between merciful salvation and the dreadful risk of eternal suffering. Their faces morphed again, displaying a wavering hope, yearning for a savior while teetering on the brink of vengeance. The shadows writhed, embracing me, and the entire castle groaned as if awakening from a long slumber. The darkness embraced me, swirling, with the lovers' souls pointing, beckoning towards the heart of their anguish. Power surged beneath my fingertips, sinking with the pulsing beat of the castle's walls. Each heartbeat whispered promises, of anguish yet to come should I falter. Suddenly, the laughter chilled into a dissonant shriek, fracturing the moment into chaos. I stumbled back, flinging my gaze away from the altar as cold dread raced down my spine. The door behind me narrowed to a pinprick of light, and within its frame, a silhouette appeared swathed in darkness, a figure with hollow eyes and a ghastly grin. "Your choice has consequences," it rasped, malignant malice dribbling from its voice like poison. From the shadows, countless hands clawed at my legs, faces stretched in agony a mere breath away from me as they dissolved into visages of hate. The cacophony broke into a fever pitch, the sounds of desperation spiraling into a maelstrom around me. Choose, or be consumed by their rage. Desperation seized my breath. I could feel the ground quake beneath me, a dark force brewing, wrapping its tendrils around my throat, suffocating the voice of reason. I had to act, but every direction seemed filled with horrors more profound than the last. The room warped, shadows growing thicker, enveloping me further in their cursed embrace, and then I saw Ida glimmer among the shadows, a choice more horrific than any I had fathomed. It pulsed with dark allure, a resonance that echoed of ancient sorrows and twisted desires. In that moment, as I stood on the precipice of oblivion, the voices crescendoed into a heart-stopping, collective scream that penetrated my soul, "Make your choice," and as I opened my mouth to respond, the walls began to close in, and I understood with a chilling clarity that the answer I provided might seal the fate of innumerable souls, but would I even survive to make it? The shadows shifted and closed in around me, the horrifying truth echoing in the depths of my mind, spiraling into maddening chaos, as I realized this choice could consume everything I had ever known, but the moment stretched infinitely, and I could hear a cacophony of voices woven together into a single prayer. Choose or be lost, and just as it felt like my answer would break the spell of despair, the shape behind me lunged forward, ripping through the shadows with a power that eclipsed everything else in the room. The moment felt endless, stretched like the pitiless grasp of the shadows ensnaring me, but the thunderous pulse of fear eclipsed everything. I didn't have the luxury to contemplate, I could only react. The shadows screamed and howled, pressing against my skin, and I found myself clawing at air as I staggered backward, my mind racing with images of what was to come. The figure lunged, its features sharpening in the dim light, a visage grotesque yet familiar. It was the apparition of a friend, their contorted face a mask of anguish and despair. Their eyes, once bright with laughter, now glowed with a hollow hunger. The innocence of those memories was eclipsed by an unquenchable thirst for vengeance. "You abandoned us," they seethed, voice laced with sorrow and fury. "Help us. Or become just like us," I gasped, heart racing as fragments of their story danced like phantoms in front of me, a tragedy played out under ciphers of stone and blood. But their expressions twisted from desperation to wrath, as if my indecision had become a dagger, slicing through the thin fabric that held them to this realm. They coiled around my ankles like fragile chains, but their hold was draining the very warmth from my being. The despair was palpable, growing heavier like a shroud, suffocating the remnants of my spirit. I fought against the tendrils of darkness clutching at me, scrambling to the altar as if it were the only sanctuary against the horrors unspooling around me. My fingers danced over the cold surface, feeling the pulse of otherworldly energy at my fingertips. The very air crackled, and with it came whispers of promises, a chance to save those engulfed by suffering, a way to escape the clutches of fate. "Choose," that spectral voice resounded again, chilling the marrow in my bones. The shadows thickened, warping the room, elongating the stone walls into monstrous shapes that loomed over me, stretching toward the cracked ceiling like hungry gargoyles thirsting for flesh, but the vision flooding my mind was maddeningly familiar. I saw faces of everyone I had lost, the friends, the lovers, their laughter a symphony turned discordant in the fabric of time. My heart screamed for them even as terror squirmed in my chest like a trapped animal. Would I lose them forever if I took this weighty step? Or were the shadows of their existence mere reflections of their everlasting torment? Suddenly, the ghostly figure of my anguished friend who had lunged at me now loomed larger, their voice warping into the echo of all the others twisted together in a mournful wail. "You're too late, we are beyond salvation." A cacophony of voices rang out, spinning into chaos that rattled through the stone floors and made the stained glass windows shatter into a cacophony of color and sound, shimmering shards scattering like shattered hopes. As terror seized me completely, I wavered, afire with indecision. The darkness crept closer, caressing my skin with a chill that dissolved my willpower. My thoughts spiraled into a dizzying vortex. What was the choice I needed to make? What was the cost of my decision, and would I doom myself or save those desperate souls? With panic clawing at my throat, I thought of the altar's promise but realized that whatever it offered would come at a price. The weight of those mournful eyes bore down on me like lead, the shadows solidifying into forms of regret, each scream a fragmented shard of a lost possibility. And then, an abrupt shift, the figure before me twisted, morphing into a towering knight draped in sorrow. "You cannot save them all." His voice boomed, shaking the very foundations, an echo of a wrathful collective haunting the castle. "Choose one, or they will all be mine." In that moment, clarity pierced the tumultuous fog of my thoughts. I understood the essence of the choice I faced: was it self-preservation or the selfish act of saving one at the cost of many? Panic seized my breath as the shadows erupted, each face blending into a horrific chaos of longing and rage. Choose. They bellowed, the anguished dirge crescendoing into an unbearable symphony of despair, and just as my voice was compelled to spill forth a choice, the ground trembled violently beneath me, splitting open to reveal a gaping maw coated in obsidian darkness. Tendrils of despair flickered from the void, clawing through the air. My heart hammered wildly as I fell into chaos, surrounded by wailing souls and glistening shadows. As the abyss yawned closer, raw panic drowned out all reason. I opened my mouth to speak, to Chusito save the only fragment left of a life I used to know, but before the words could escape, the horrifying truth unfolded. The dark figure that had lunged at me now stood within arm's reach, eyes glowing with insatiable darkness, waiting to make the choice for me, and with its outstretched hand, I realized my answer may already have been chosen for me. The ground trembled beneath me, echoing the war cries of the forsaken souls surrounding the maw of the abyss. Suddenly, a blast of frigid air swept through the chamber, snuffing out the flickering torches and plunging us into a darkness deeper than any night. My heart thudded in my chest as fear coiled around my throat. Desperate voices whispered of unspeakable horrors that lurked just beyond the edge of my perception. "Don't let it take you," pleaded one spectral voice, so close I felt its chill brush my cheek. "Remember us." The dank air tightened with their anguish, a frenzied yearning clawing at my awareness. I was on the edge of being lost amidst their torment, ensnared in the intricate web spun from neglect and ghastly regrets. In that cascading darkness, the night, now a grotesque spectre cloaked in twisted steel, stepped forward. His bellow resonated through the black void, each word a shackle latched onto my resolve. "You think you can escape the binds of your own guilt?" he challenged. "The lovers cursed for their desires, and you, another to bear this weight." My vision blurred as shadows flickered around me, distorting forms both familiar and disturbing. The faces of my lost friends morphed into grotesque visages, a jarring contrast to the laughter we once shared. They reached out to me, their hollow eyes glistening like polished obsidian, hands outstretched as if even the smallest connection could save them from the darkness. "Help us!" one of them cried, their voice a raw wound of desperation. "You have to help us break the curse." Yet the brittle nature of their plea, laced with despair, made me hesitate. Each anguished face flickered with the soft glow of hope, then dissolved into a nightmarish scream. The night spectre surged forward, towering over me, casting a shadow that threatened to swallow both them and me whole. "They'll show you their pain," he taunted, with a cruel smirk stretching across his burned features, skeletal hands curling menacingly. Suddenly, the walls of the chamber twisted, revealing a scene unfolding behind the veil of Shadows, a tableau of lovers bound by fate and folly, their entwined bodies trapped in an eternal embrace, marred by the blood drenching the floor around them. "Look!" the knight commanded, his voice gaining a malicious lilt. "Witness what their desires birthed." The flickering shadows revealed an age-old story of betrayal and sorrow, played out in alternating flashes, a kiss that reverberated with echoes of laughter followed by cries of anguish as love transformed into vengeance. Their eyes, once aflame with passion, were now vacant mirrors reflecting my own possible destiny. Glimmers of shimmering chains stretched across the scene, each link a memory of loss, pulling me deeper into their haunting sorrow. As reality folded in on itself, the screams morphed into a cacophony that threatened to drown me. Each cry came with a name echoing with a haunting resonance. "You will join them." The knight howled, his laughter a shriek that punctuated the air with shimmering shards of dread. With horror tightening like a vice around my heart, I wrenched my gaze from the horrific tableau, only to find the void yawning ever closer, tendrils of darkness reaching out to test my resolve. "Make your choice." The spectre's cries grew, a chorus of despair blending into a singular, desperate plea that gathered momentum, threatening to collapse my will. That I was a thread in this tapestry of agony, fears caught in the fabric of their long-lost hopes. But within my despair, an ember sparked in irrational defiance. I would not surrender to this darkness. But whom to save? The abyss rumbled beneath me, its breath foul and seething, a reminder of the fetid fate that awaited my body trembled with indecision, weighed down by the agony of it all. Finally, the suffocating pressure of despair ignited a primal scream within me. I could feel the breath of the shadows, they recoiled momentarily, their tangible fear pooling into a mist of ancient anguish. I thought of the possibility of redemption amidst the ruin, and then, as if summoned from the depths of nightmare, a flash of blinding light illuminated the chamber. Shadows writhed and contorted in turmoil, momentarily pushed back, revealing a shimmering figure at the center, reflection of innocence, a ghostly visage of someone I loved, reaching out through the blackness with imploring hands. "Choose wisely," they whispered, voice laced with ethereal promise, yet before I could grasp the significance of that hope, the knight surged forward, incensed by the light that dared challenge his dominion. "It is too late," he thundered, the echo rippling through my very soul. "You will either join the lovers in their circles of torment or become a wretched spectre yourself." With one final, anguished cry that echoed through the darkness, he lunged towards me, and the ground beneath began to split anew, the shadows converging, a maelstrom of despair wrapping around my legs. The light flickered, faltering as I was swept away, drowning in the depths of betrayal and sorrow. Before the abyss could consummate my fate, the last glimpse of the angelic figure was snuffed out, drowned in shadows. In that moment, as I prepared to surrender to the dark, the whispers of the castle enveloped me. "Are you ready to embrace your true fate?" And with that chilling question hanging in the air, darkness claimed me, tightening its hold as the night's laughter echoed like a death knell, ushering in the silence of eternal night. I awoke with a jolt, the cold ground biting into my skin as I gasped for breath. The darkness around me was thick and oppressive, swathed in an almost tangible weight that stifled any glimmer of light. The faintest hint of despair lingered, like the aftertaste of a nightmare too raw to brush away. All around me lay the debris of what once seemed to be a grand hall, broken stones, shattered mirrors reflecting nothing, and tarnished chandeliers hanging precariously overhead. The mournful echoes of past celebrations twisted through the air, blending seamlessly with my panic, making it nearly impossible to discern reality. "Where are you?" I whispered. "What do you want from me?" The silence responded only with a creeping sense of inevitability, a reminder of the chilling question that had churned in my mind: what true fate awaited me? As I pushed myself upright, my eyes caught sight of an ornate door ajar at the far end of the chamber, darkened contours of intricate woodwork promising passage into the unknown. Something pushed against the edges of my consciousness, a pull, a longing that made my heart race against its prison of bone. Yet, every instinct screamed caution. The knight's baleful words echoed back to me like the tolling of a fatal bell. "Choose wisely." I swallowed hard, each breath tinged with the bitterness of uncertainty. The shadows around me shifted, seemingly alive, whispering secrets in punctuated silence as if daring me to take a step closer. With no other option but to confront whatever lay beyond the door, I rose to my feet, my legs shaky and uncertain. Each step felt sacrilegious, a tread into the very heart of the cursed. Pausing before the open door, I felt the chill seep into my skin, whispering promises of unseen horrors lying in wait. The space beyond was suffused with a muted glow, a stark contrast to the cold veil I had just escaped. Breathlessly, I crossed the threshold into a narrow corridor, the walls lined with paintings that seemed to watch my every move. Each pair of eyes glimmered as if they held truths concealed in layers of agony and torment, their haunting expressions morphed into messages of warning. The fading colors of a couple's joyous dance twisted into grotesque displays of anguish, the figures seemed forever trapped in a waltz of despair. It ignited a fire of dread in my gut, echoing the cries of those who had been ensnared by their emotions just like I was. In the distance, I heard them, the soft, mournful cries of those lost souls, now resonating like a desolate symphony. Their wails spoke not just of despair but of the darkness still lurking, ever hungry. A sudden draft swept through the corridor, carrying with it a grotesque chorus, each note a plea for help, a plea that unraveled the very fabric of my reason. "Join us," they sang, their voices cracking on the edges, driven by the weight of their penance. That I pressed on, feeling an insistent tug at my heart, a desire to heed the voices, to understand the curse that bound them. Yet, with each step deeper into the bowels of this accursed castle, dread knotted tighter in my chest. The air thickened around me, forcing me to confront the truth. the night had not simply filled my mind with nightmares. He had drawn me into a web spun from despair and remorse, and now it was my turn to pay for the sins of others. Chancing a glance back, I spotted shadows gathering at the entrance of the corridor, darkness pooling and seeping as if alive, bearing witness to my decisions. The corridor narrowed, claustrophobic, the shadows pulsating with a malevolent life of their own. I felt their cold breath snaking around me, hungry for my warmth, a reminder of the curse and its inevitable manifestation. Then came a voice from my left, cool and clear amidst the chaos. "You should have turned back, now there is no escape." A spectral figure emerged from the shadows, beautiful yet twisted, their visage a haunting blend of elegance and sorrow. "Who are you?" I stammered, but my voice quavered as dread thrummed in my veins. "The keeper of memories," they replied, a sardonic smile playing on their lips. "I am bound to this wretched place. Nothing leaves without bearing its truth. And you shall be my vessel." Before I could process the implications of their words, the corridor began to tremble. The very walls quaked, and the paintings twisted into grotesque interpretations of my life, each brush stroke smeared not with colors, but with the grief of those I would never save. They wailed in unison as the ground shook harder, and I stumbled against the wall, my breath catching. The keepers stepped closer, their ethereal body radiating an essence that both captivated and horrified me. "Embrace your fate," they murmured, darkness curling around them like a shroud, the whispers louder now intertwined with my heartbeat, urging me to join them in their lament, to forever remain entwined in their cursed fate. As the images engulfed me, the castle trembled under the weight of its past, and I felt myself being drawn towards its heart, helpless against the pull. Just as I was about to be consumed by the shadows, the corridor snapped abruptly, the darkness beneath me fracturing into a chasm. I screamed, suspended between two worlds. With a final tremor, my body fell into the void, the keeper's laughter echoing around me, promising an eternity of despair and regret. The last thing I heard before the silence devoured me was a voice merging with the shadows. "Welcome home." As the world around me faded into an endless void, I felt the pull of the shadows releasing their grip just long enough for me to grasp a breath, a flicker of consciousness returning to my body. I landed not with a thud but a soft, reverberating sting. The crunching of gravel beneath me was jarring, grounding. I blinked, disoriented, as remnants of the haunting corridor morphed back into something familiar yet unnerving. That I found myself in an overgrown garden, but this was not the sweet fragrance of blooming flowers or lush greenery. Instead, it exuded an earthy, petrichor odor tinged with decay, a silent mausoleum of forgotten dreams. Shapes of monstrous flora twisted grotesquely in the shifting shadows, casting elongated figures against the moss-covered stone statues that littered the ground like forgotten sentinels. Moonlight trickled through tangled branches, highlighting the eerie landscape, a graveyard intertwined with nature's fury, where life and death danced an unforgiving waltz. The whispers of lost souls had transformed. Now they were gnawing at the edges of my sanity, sly and serpentine. "Stay with us," they beckoned, soothing but insidious, winding around my mind like a vine promising comfort. I stood, momentarily frozen, grappling with the grip of dread that tightened around my throat. My eyes wandered to a massive willow tree at the center of the garden, its gnarled branches swaying as if responding to unheard voices. It loomed over the ruins like an ancient guardian, yet the sharpness of its silhouette sent a jolt of unease down my spine. What surrounded it drew my gaze, a circle of rough-hewn stones, each one bearing unsettling carvings of anguished faces seemingly rising from the earth itself. An instinctual warning clawed at my mind, the realization that I might be standing on a threshold, not merely of another realm, but of something infinitely more sinister. I'd been a mere pawn in the keeper of memories game, and this garden felt less like a sanctuary and more like a trap woven carefully by those whose lives had been extinguished long ago. With trembling limbs, I approached the circle, curiosity battling against gnawing fear, each step echoing a silent plea for strength. As I got closer, the features of the stone faces became increasingly distorted, their mouths opened wide in silent screams as if eternally begging for release. The cacophony of whispers rose once more, but this time they were accompanied by a soft rustle, the promise of revelations unfurling like the petals of cursed blooms. Suddenly, one of the stones shifted, cracking against the cobblestone path. An undeniable chill seeped into my bones as shadows began to stir at the corners of my vision. Were they forming? I dared to look back, heart galloping, and gasped as a spectral figure emerged beyond the garden's edge, eyes glimmering alarmingly like torches snuffed at dusk. Help! The figure choked out, its color a fog of gray and despair. Free us! But the voice felt simultaneously like a plea and a curse, tethering my heart in a vortex of conflicting emotions. Each plea sent ripples through the air, as if the very essence of the garden responded to the figure's desperation. From their frail silhouette, moths of shadow flew, colliding against the willow's trunk in a flurry, their patterns forming cryptic symbols in the air before dispersing into obscurity. A figure stepped from the shadows behind the willow, no ordinary spectre but the keeper of memories, their face now more twisted, warped into a grotesque caricature of sorrow. "Ah, the wanderer returns," they hissed, their voice reverberating through my core like the toll of a death knell. Few pass the threshold of despair unscathed, even fewer leave once they enter. Where path leads, sorrow follows. And now, my dear, you stand at the brink of truth wrapped in haunting veils that I fought against its chilling presence, flickers of courage igniting with uncertainty. "I cannot aid anyone, that is where you are wrong," the keeper interrupted, unfurling skeletal fingers towards the circle. "Within you lies an awakening. The stories parallel your heart's beat. Will you brave the burden of their memories?" Before my heart could answer, the earth trembled, and an unearthly moan reverberated from the soil beneath the stones. Ground zero for anguished spirits wanting resolution. "Join us," they chanted in dissonant harmony, faces blurring in emotional chaos. A voiceless tempest swirled, a wrathful wind stirring up clouds of shadows as I scrambled back, terror clenching my heart, and just as a piercing scream broke through the cacophony, the anguished wail of betrayal, I felt something brush against my back. It was warm, yet unsettling, a breath far too familiar but lost in my memory. I turned slowly, dread pooling as I recognized the familiar features twisted in grief. "Help me," they whispered, a beloved face locked in torment. It was someone I thought lost, someone who had crossed to the other side. That I stood frozen, the truth of my fate crashing down like a tidal wave. The keeper of memories smiled, their twisted eyes glinting with a predatory delight. "Time to awaken what must never rest," and just like that, the shadows burst forth from the garden, a river of sorrow crashing against me, each wave a memory breaking free as the haunting chorus swelled. I was left teetering on the precipice between madness and resurrection. But it was then I realized the whispers had shifted. "Join us, take the plunge, the truth awaits." With my heart in my throat, I stumbled back, sensing I had crossed an unyielding line and all paths were now drenched in shadows. Just as the ground beneath me quaked violently and the spirits surged forward, I felt the haunting tug of fate disregard my fragile resistance. "Will you take their curse?" the keeper hissed, their spectral form melding seamlessly with the shadows. As the world began to spiral around me, I was left with one terrifying truth: what I had awakened was beyond my control, and there was no turning back. The darkness loomed like a phantom, shifting and undulating as if it had a life of its own. I staggered back, the sensation of unseen tendrils snaking around my ankles and wrists, yanking me deeper into an abyss of pain and sorrow. The keeper's voice threaded through the chaos, an echoing laughter reverberating against the encroaching shadows. "Awaken, wanderer. You have not yet tasted the full depth of despair," they croaked, their silhouette merging with the tumult, specters flitting past like wisps of smoke. Each face I glimpsed in that inky expanse was a reflection of agony, their eyes hollow but pulsing with a muted intensity, echoes of regret and lost time battering against my very soul. Around the circle of stones, the ground began to tremble more forcefully, veins of darkness creeping out from beneath them, coiling toward my feet as though eager to pull me down. Panic clawed at my throat, and I fought against the urge to succumb to their siren call. My gaze fell upon the grim figure at the heart of it all, the familiar face locked in torment. The way their eyes flickered with sorrow felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I opened my mouth to speak, yet the words evaporated, suffocated by the overwhelming dread. "What happened? How did you get here?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely escaping the confines of my tightening chest. The shadows around us seemed to pulse in sync with my urgent heartbeat, the whispers morphing into a feral symphony of accusations, the figure's lips twisted into a pained semblance of a smile. You must remember, my love, we are bound by our choices, they rasped, their voice nearly drowned out by the crescendo of wails from the spirits surrounding us. I am trapped here, your curse awaits you. The cycle continues. The keeper stepped closer, and with each step, the shadows behind them lengthened, hungry and sinister. Promises were made long ago, and you are the key, the one to unlock the chains of history, they crooned, eyes glinting like macabre jewels. But only at the cost of your soul. No, I protested, but the shadows surged forward, a tidal wave of sorrow, and the ground erupted, revealing a gaping maw, endless void of churning darkness. The scent of earth and decay mingled with a burning sulfur that clawed at my senses, forcing me to reel back in raw fear. Help me! Free us! The voice cried out, both familiar and foreign, resonating through the very marrow of my bones. It was no longer just a single voice that echoed in the winds of that cursed garden, it was a chorus, a symphony of souls all rallying together, begging for release. As I fell to my knees, the stone figures warped, their anguished faces morphing into something terrifying and primal. Their mouths formed wordless screams that battered against my psyche, each sound pulling me further into the wretched embrace of despair. The figure before me, clad in shadows, reached out a hand to grasp mine. You cannot turn away, they whispered. Not now. You will choose, and soon we all shall be free. Just as I was about to defeat the burgeoning terror within, a blinding light flickered in the depths of the shadows, a beacon in the overwhelming darkness. Shapes shifted, and I glimpsed vague faces emerging, glistening with untold histories and pain, gliding toward me like specters past. It was not only a plea, but a warning. Do you want to remember? The keeper hissed, drawing my attention like a black hole. You cannot evade the truth forever. Not when love binds you. The light pulsated, illuminating the features of the faces, each more distorted than the last, a tapestry of lives lost and connections severed. As the darkness swirled violently around, I saw flickers of heights and depths, glimpses of ethereal realms showcasing fleeting images of joy, anguish, betrayal, and agony. Suddenly, the ground let out a dreadful groan as the figures rose higher, their smoky forms wrapping around me, thrumming with an energy that squeezed my heart. Echoes of laughter mixed with cries, merging into a haunting lullaby that tugged at the very core of my being. I looked back into the face of the beloved figure trapped in pain. There was a message buried beneath their sorrow: if you do not take action, the cycle will repeat, and we will be trapped forever. Before I could respond, the earth shook violently, and the shadows opened their gaping mouths, revealing an endless void, the curse clambering towards me like a beast hungry for a meal. Time itself felt suspended, a moment balancing on the verge of collapse. Join us, the keeper spat, their grin widening, bared teeth glimmering with malice. Claim your role in this dark tale, or watch as the ones you've cursed plunge into endless torment. With heart pounding, I stared into the maw of the dark void swirling beneath me, grappling with the truth splitting apart the fabric of reality. I took a step back instinctively, but it was too late. The force of the specters surged forth, a torrent of shadow consuming me whole. And then I realized if truth was not merely to be unveiled but devoured. They wanted me to surrender, to become part of that dreadful cycle. As I was enveloped in darkness, the whispers transformed into roars, my soul teetering between light and shadow, entwined with the spirits calling out, revealing the one choice I had never anticipated. The keeper of memories held my gaze, eyes alive with wicked delight. Choose wisely, wanderer. Your answer is buried beneath the veil of your own memories. Do you dare to awaken it? Before I could comprehend the full weight of the decision unfurling before me, the ground beneath roared violently, and the earth shattered, sending me plummeting into the abyss as a chilling whisper slipped through the air: welcome home. As I descended into the depths of the abyss, time unraveled, each second stretching into eternity. The darkness coiled around me, smothering any remaining flicker of hope. The echoes of my beloved's anguished cries merged with wails of countless lost souls, giving birth to a cacophonous symphony that eroded the barriers of reason. That I fell through a void that seemed infinite, spiraling into a whirlwind of memories that wrapped around me like a shroud. Snippets of my past surged forward, blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. Faces materialized: friends, family, even strangers, their expressions warped with anguish and despair. They hovered like phantoms, whispering accusations and regrets that clawed at my mind. "Why did you abandon us?" a voice grieved, shimmering like a mirage just out of reach. As I grasped for it, the spectral figure evaporated into the darkness, replaced by another, their eyes hollow pits of sorrow. "You chose ambition over love," another lamented, their form melting away like mist in the morning sun. I screamed, wishing for the sweet oblivion of silence, but the awareness of my choices barbed my heart like thorns. The choices that had led me here, to this pit of ceaseless suffering, the shadows grew thick and cloying, their grip like iron on my limbs. I struggled in vain, yet the weight of my sins bore down upon me. I could see fleeting glimpses of a grand castle looming in the distance, ethereal and haunting, shrouded in an ancient fog that seemed to breathe with malevolence. The sight sent a chill racing through my spine, a grotesque monument to the love sealed in eternal torment. The keeper's voice slithered into my consciousness, dripping with honeyed malice. "Ah, the memories of a cursed heart so ripe with regrets. But do they not stir the courage in you, wanderer? So much to undo, so much to reclaim." My heart raced as the castle swelled before me, oppressive and glorious, its spires clawing at the crimson sky. Gnarled vines twisted around its walls, pulsating with a life of their own, and the air hung thick with the scent of decay and lost dreams. I understood too well the allure it held, a forbidden dance between the past and the present. A doorway formed within the castle's crumbling facade, flickering with an unsettling light, as if inviting me to enter. My legs trembled, caught between the whispering shadows and the beckoning glow. Where would that path lead? I could sense the ominous gaze of the keeper, watching with bated breath, as if my every hesitation drew them deeper into their web. "Will you proceed, or shall you drown in your despair?" they taunted. Steeling myself, I crossed the threshold. The moment my foot touched the marble floor, the castle shuddered, and the surroundings warped, transporting me into a grand hall that twisted with time. Darkness slithered through ornate chandeliers, casting grotesque patterns on the walls. "What have they done?" a voice echoed from the shadows, laced with a mixture of panic and sorrow. Suddenly, a figure emerged, a wraith-like being clutching a tattered parchment. I recognized her, the very spirit that had watched over me, a guardian of the castle's secrets. Do not listen to them, she pleaded, her voice a fragile whisper. "They wish to trap you here, bound to repeat their actions, to feed on love's anguish. You must resist." As she spoke, tendrils of darkness snaked along the marble floor, rising like serpents hungry for flesh. The keeper's laughter rose, bubbling beneath the surface of her words. "Oh, but love cannot be escaped, sweet wanderer. Even your guardian is ensnared by the whispers of her desires. Join us, or let hope sour until it festers like a wound." A chilling breeze swept through the hall, extinguishing some of the flickering lights overhead, and the room darkened, my heart racing. The spirits around me surged with a blended cry of fear and suffering. Each lament seemed to twist around me, tightening like a noose. "Choose, wanderer." The keeper beckoned, their forms swirling like a tempest. "Reinstate the love lost, forgive the betrayals, and it may set those chained within this castle free. Or break the cycle and doom yourself, lose everyone to the void." With my breath quickening, I felt the pulsing darkness close in once more, the weight of choice pressing against my chest. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, an ear-splitting shriek pierced the air. From the floor, a figure erupted, its face a grotesque amalgamation of love and despair. "No. Do not trust them," it cried, and recognition snapped through me as I realized it was another specter of the love I longed to reclaim. Before I could call her name, the darkness surged and enveloped her, melding back into the shadows with a chilling finality. Everything went black for a heartbeat, then erupted back into chaos, the room shifting, shadows roaring in a tempest like unleashed beasts. And while I stood glued to the spot, the keeper loomed closer, their voice a sinuous hiss against the pulsing backdrop of doomed souls. "Will you relinquish your place among the living, wanderer, or stand firm in your indifference? You have the power of choice at your very fingertips. But if you hesitate," their grin unfurled wider, revealing teeth sharpened to points. "Then perhaps the next scream will be yours." In that moment, reality seemed to fracture around me, the castle roaring to life in raucous defiance of my indecision. I felt the shadows begin to pull me toward the abyss, their grip tightening cruelly as I stood teetering on the edge of fate, and in that breathless instant the world around me erupted into cascading darkness, bearing down with the weight of 1,000 lost souls, as I realized the ultimate choice lay before me, to embrace the abyss, or to confront the unspeakable horror that awaited within the heart of the castle. Somewhere in the thickness of night, something stirred a heart beating, and it craved more than just a soul lost to despair. An overwhelming sense of purpose compelled me, as the keeper's eyes ignited with malice. "Choose swiftly, wanderer," they hissed, their shadow entwining with my own as tendrils of darkness converged around me. "Or remain forever trapped, in an endless cycle of torment and love." And then I heard a voice, soft yet commanding, cutting through the darkness. "Help me break the cycle." And so, as the darkness engulfed me, I realized I would either awaken the dream or succumb to the nightmare, a choice that would reverberate through eternity. The moment I plunged into the abyss, a tidal wave of darkness swallowed me whole. Time lost all meaning as chilling whispers coiled around my consciousness, taunting me with fragmented memories of betrayal, heartache, and unfulfilled promises. The last echoes of that desperate voice lingered in my mind, urging me to confront the cyclical horror I found myself entwined within. Suddenly, the void twisted violently, my surroundings reshaping into an ancient, weeping willow at the center of the garden, its gnarled branches woven with ghostly locks of hair. Searing pain surged through my chest as I faced the figures emerging from the shadows, familiar, lost loves, their faces trapped in expressions of agony, forever entwined in the grim embrace of despair. "You returned," one whispered, eyes glistening like obsidian, filled with a sorrow deeper than the void itself. "You must choose, or we perish in sorrow forever." The melancholy in their voices entwined with the rustle of leaves, begging for resolution. Tendrils of chill swirled around my ankles as I faltered, struggling against the heavy weight of guilt that bound me. The keeper of memories loomed close behind me, shadows writhing at their feet, their grin a grotesque mask of anticipation. "So many choices, dear wanderer," they crooned, their voice oozing with a malice that made my skin crawl. "Choose wisely, but know this, every wish bears the weight of consequence." The whispers crescendoed into maddened wails, urging me to act. I tore my eyes from the shadows, forcing a breath through lips parched from fear. "I want to save them," I said, my heart racing, unlocking the weight of my desire to reclaim the love snatched from my grasp. "I'll do whatever it takes, then make the choice that binds them to freedom," the keeper hissed, extending a trembling hand towards the altar of whispers, an old stone pulpit, carved with the stories of those who had come before me, each symbol a testament to love and rage alike. "But tread carefully, what you seek may lead to your own obliteration." As I stepped toward the altar, shadows leapt to life, swirling in chaotic patterns, each heartbeat pulsating in tandem with their horrific dance. Reluctantly, I placed my palm on the stone, cold against my skin. The flood of memories rushed back, visions intertwining like serpents, laughter of moments long gone, the warmth of embraces now extinguished, layered over a grim tapestry of betrayal. In that instant, clarity struck. I saw it revealed before me, each intertwining path, the choices made for love twisting into an inescapable fate. But with it came the searing weight of their despair, the promise of reliving eternity bound to this cycle. "If I choose to save them," I whispered, but the keeper's laughter erupted behind me, an unsettling cacophony. "But you shall sink deeper, wanderer. Are you ready to pay the price?" "I will do it," I cried, my voice trembling yet defiantly strong. "I will pay any price to save them." "Very well," the keeper whispered, shadows drowning the light around us. "With every choice comes a sacrifice." Fingers clawed at my heart, tendrils of despair wrapping tighter, whispering grotesque promises. Yet the call of my beloved was clear, a fragile, longing note pulling me from the depths of despair, flooding my mind with hope. "Help me break the cycle," they cried again, their voice merging with harmonies woven from sorrow, desperation flooding through the air. Yet as I could barely breathe, the keeper of memories unleashed the consequences of my choice. Tendrils tore from the shadows, piercing my skin and knitting together the fabric of the garden itself. Darkness surged around me until I was enveloped in its embrace. I gasped for air as I felt my essence splinter, tendrils clawing at my heart, each fiber rejoicing in the torment. and then the truth emerged, twisting within my chest. I had been chosen to embody a new curse birthed from the ashes of past Levesto, feed the eternal hunger of this castle, forever entwined with shadows. "Welcome home," the keeper crooned as my vision blurred. I could feel the agony and despair flooding from the hundreds upon hundreds of souls, melding to create one singular, anguished cry that spiraled into the night, a potent symphony yearning to shatter through the veil of oblivion. I turned to face my beloved, their desperate gaze reflecting an endless sorrow, and for one hard moment, I realized they were the very key, the tether binding me forever to their fate. That my heart shattered entirely as darkness embraced me completely, forging my bonds anew. I could feel their pain seeping into my soul as I became one with their torment, surrendering to the shadows just as they did, and in that agonizing moment, the full weight of my choice thickened the air. Not only had I chosen to bear the hate, the heartache, the curse, but I was now a part of it. I was entwined with them forever, and among the echoes of my own lament, a chilling thought twisted anew, as the castle creaked under the weight of its ancient curse. Would it take another broken heart to tear the cycle apart? Or had I become the next keeper of despair, destined to listen endlessly to the cries of the trapped, forever longing for escape? As I felt the shadows close around me, a single question echoed against the stone walls: did I unwittingly become the echoes of countless hearts, mine now forever lost?